It's been so long since I recorded a video. Ugh.
Started filming.
Saturate with axle grease. In the next series of episodes, I will be pulling out the transmission and putting in a manual transmission because it was a cheaper solution technically. A new or a refurbished 700 R4 transmission was about $1,200, $1,300, whereas a used manual transmission, parts and everything to convert the van over, so far have only reached about $900. So the point of this project is to prove to my wife, the lovely Mrs. Manley, the Duchess herself, that it is cheaper to put in a manual than to just get a refurbished 700 R4 transmission. So, let's get to it. So now you're probably asking me, well, what's wrong with your transmission? Why do you gotta pull it out? Well, sit tight, buckaroo, because if you remember in a past video, I had trouble with the transmission leaking out the bottom, leaking the transmission fluid. And in that time in which it was leaking and I was topping the fluid off, there were many times where the transmission was running pretty dry. So a lot of unnecessary wear and tear. And another thing is the output shaft also sweats oil at quite a rate, especially when it's running, so it's leaking oil out there. Well, I have long neglected doing work on it and was just daily driving, as I do, and it, well, it does this. Miss Guinevere here is a little camera shy and doesn't want to make that horrendous noise she did Tuesday morning as I was heading to work. It was a Wednesday morning. Time is not relative. Also, the main reason why I'm so sweaty is because I've been riding my bicycle to work because my daily driver is out of commission. Well, long story short, initially what had started happening was there was vibration. And it would, whenever the revs would go up, it would brrr, and you could feel it vibrating. So I was like, oh no, it's the engine, because it was going with the revs. The transmission wouldn't do that because it's outputting, it's only getting faster and faster, so you'd think the faster you go, the more vibration would happen there. Not so. So I was like, oh no, the engine's off balance, I must be misfiring, you know, all of the mental, like, what ifs. So what I would do is, going down the street, I would pop it neutral and give it boom, boom, some revs. Smooth as a baby's bottom. Not a single brrr, nothing shook. It just went boom, just fine. Same on the freeway. Going 70 miles an hour, it is scary. Frightful, to say the least, because it just, everything shakes. Rear view mirrors shaking, the side mirrors are shaking. Like, I would expect something for someone's car who's got that 6 sub in the back seat. But mine, no 6 sub in the back seat. Just vibration in the transmission. So what had happened, Tuesday morning, on the way to work, it was just cluck, 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 cluck. Pop into neutral, and this time it's coming from the output shaft of the transmission where it was leaking that oil. So I was done. I was like, I can't drive it anymore. I already have most everything I need. The only thing that I don't have is undivided time. So and then fears of the apartment complex that I'm living in. That's another video that is going to come with much editing quality, because I have done some heckin' investigative journalism. Today, I gotta get this transmission out, so I gotta lift up the van, take the exhaust off, the transmission bracket, undo the transmission off of the engine, pull it out, put it in the garage, put the van back down, because I can't even let it look like the van is inoperable, because heaven forbid they tow it again. Oh yeah, you should watch that video. So without further ado, I gotta hop to it, because time is of the essence. And it's about 10 o'clock when the tow trucks start doing their rounds to see whose vehicles can be towed. So, I'm not going to show the process of removing the transmission. I could recommend a ton of videos for removing a transmission that helped me out and helped me realize that it's not impossible to do on your own. So, I'm just going to get to it. Oh, it's out. So I ended up, stupid me, rounding out one of the bolts. This one. And what I had to do was weld a big old gob on it, take an old socket that I had and just hammer it on, and was able to get it off. But it was a pain in the butt. And I need this. Because the thing is, the friction plate, or I guess it is the flywheel. The flywheel that I got is missing something. So, and that's the flywheel for the transmission that I got. What we'll see about doing is using this on the back side of that and just seeing if it can double as a spacer, because I will be using this steel. It's like 3/4, and using it as the adapter plate to marry this transmission to that engine. Now, working with the adapter plate, what I had initially done is made this here plywood template. Essentially what I had done is punched out a hole in the middle of a piece of plywood, lined it up with these holes. Actually, it's more like those holes. And then I spun it around and did the same on there, because a lot of times when people do adapter plates, they do it from the engine, essentially. Well, I don't want to pull the engine out, so I was using the old transmission, the new transmission. Well, as I was doing this plywood adapter, like that one right there were just too many variables. The adapter plate needs to fit perfectly. The friction disc, the clutch, the spring plate, they all need to fit perfectly, so the output or the input shaft and the output of the engine line perfectly. As you see, I put a little socket on this for the sake of marking where it was on the plywood. And there were just too many variables. I mean, it is thousandths of an inch in some cases, but I think it might have been millimeters, and even millimeters worry me, because any little bit of play could wear and tear through engine and transmission. So what I'm doing now is I've got my 50mm lens on my camera. My usual camera, this is my fancy new phone, so that's why frame rates are all super nice. What I have is have it a distance away, and essentially I have the center of the viewfinder right there. And I take a picture of it, and then what I'll do is I will take that image and I will put it on a CAD program. I will then trace all of this out, and then I will do the same for that one, overlay them, and then have myself a template. Now the steel here, I cut off at work. As you can see, this slow motion footage here. Ooh, so nice. This phone also has slow motion. I might use this phone for filming because it's just so nice. But this hunk of steel, 3/4 inch, is a pain in the butt to cut through. So thankfully, the generosity of Mrs. Manley, the Duchess herself, allowed me to buy a very cheap plasma cutter that should be showing up today. So once I have all of that squared away, at least in terms of the template and everything, we can paste it on here, score everything, cut it out, and then I will be taking this to a drill press and drilling the necessary holes. Now, in terms of that side, I have these. When I say that side, this is my analog for the engine. So what this is going to do is come out the back side of that transmission adapter plate into the engine, so it's nice and flush. Shout out to Ace Hardware, helpful hardware men, folks, whoever they are. So I've got 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Never mind, I have 6. And that's what's going to go into the engine, and it's going to be flush. And then on the adapter plate side, I have this threaded rod. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread the holes on there. It's going to come through the engine, and it's going to bolt on the other side. That's the idea. I hope it works out. You're watching it as it happens, stream of conscious. Editor me, if this worked out, let me know. Oh, cool, man. I can't believe it worked out. So now to heft this off, which this transmission doesn't weigh very much, and heft on that transmission onto the sawhorse. It's going to be so much fun. So I used the original flywheel with the automatic transmission as a spacer on the new flywheel, and what I did is, I don't know if you can see here, I have bolts inside there that I use to kind of make up the space, and I think it should be fine. I think it should hold up to many pounds of torque. I got grade 8 bolts on it. What could go wrong? Ruh-roh. It's not fitting. So I gotta cut that bit out. I knew this was gonna happen. That's fine. I can weld. So much for getting it done this weekend. I'm not a big fan of where this is sitting, but I could always just take it and bend it to where maybe it's like right here. Yeah, that'd be pretty nice. So what I've done is I've got the adapter plate in there. I've got 2 bolts into it. The jack's holding it up. And I was taking, which is probably not nice to this output shaft, but I was taking the vice grips and rotating it. And it rotates. So, do I then just say, hey, it rotates, it should be good, or I don't know. I honestly don't know. I've never done this before. So, oh, I'm bleeding. Do I just keep assembling and then I don't know. I don't know. Right now I just took the old transmission plate and I had trimmed it up so it'll mount there, and then the dampener will mount about there, and then I cut off the original mounts. And what I'm going to do is re-weld them wherever they need to sit, because the transmission sits at an angle compared to how it is, how a normal transmission would be. So, progress. I reckon it should be done by tomorrow, but I'm going to try getting it done today, but we'll see. It ain't pretty, but it'll do. One step closer. Like 30 more steps to go. So I got everything put back together, and I started fine, went into gear just fine, but then I realized that pushing the clutch in did absolutely nothing, and it would spin like it was spinning if my foot was hard into the clutch or not. So what I think it is, the spring plate is too close to the clutch or the friction disc. So my guess is the friction disc of the Astro is a lot thinner than that of the Dodge Ram 1500. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I have all the same size washers to space out the spring plate from the flywheel, and we'll see what happens. I'm done for the day because I've been spending all day on it since about 2 in the afternoon, so I'm done for the day. But I put it the highest I could go into gear comfortably, and I was really risking it getting it into gear without the clutch working. Got it in 4th gear and I revved it up, and nothing beyond normal drive shaft or normal engine vibration. So I'm happy with that. The biggest thing is to see how it performs at freeway speeds. So maybe I'm saving myself from having to balance a drive shaft, at least for now. My precious. Guess what? It freaking drives. Oh man, freaking triple pedal. Duke Manley from the future here. You might be asking yourself, wait a minute, how did I go from barely put together to suddenly driving? Well, there's a handful of things that I forgot to film, and currently it is a solid year later. It is the 4th of July, 2023. Most of this recording was done June and July of 2022, so finally got around to actually editing and realized that I didn't film as much as I probably should have. So to kind of fill in the blanks here, the clutch pedal, the way that I'd placed it was down into the floor, so the master cylinder was down on the floor, making the clutch throw very hard, about 40 pounds to push in. It was not a pleasant drive. Another thing that I failed to mention is the loss of speedometer, because the old transmission had the mechanisms and everything inside of the transmission for speedometer, so the way that I knew that the engine lasted, or rather the car lasted 300 miles, was because I was using an app on my phone, and that's how I tracked it. And the other thing is the whole process and everything. If you're planning on doing this, learn from my mistakes, because it took 10 times as long, 10 times longer than I wanted it to, and ended up being very unpleasant, and I ended up losing a beloved vehicle of mine, because ultimately, while I was working on the van, and after the transmission adapter failed around that 300-mile mark, that is when I was involved in my accident, had to sell it, and so here I am, 4th of July, telling you to not do what I did, to be wise with your decisions. all in all, if you're planning on getting yourself involved in a project this big, just understand that it's going to take some time. It's going to take some trial and error, and well, probably not in your case, but if you happen to be riding your bicycle to work, be careful, because people don't always pay attention. But I guess that's all for me for this video, and for my young pup, haven't been introduced yet, and just be smart, be safe, and stay rusty. See you next time.